Hey all, good to see you. Thanks for joining. Bit of an quite late Sunday night unscheduled stream, but I was doing some prompting anyway, and I thought, yeah, why not record the process and maybe help some beginners out along the way. We can put a VOD of this up on YouTube and Twitch afterwards. Gonna wait a couple of minutes. Absolutely, yeah. I'll wait a couple of minutes and see if anyone else comes in before I start. All the lurkers. Yep, I'm sure there's a bunch of lurkers, and especially it's going to be interesting to see. I'm not quite sure how many people we'll have on at this time of night. So it is, let me see my time zones. 8:16 Eastern, 1:16 UTC, Mountain Time 6:16 PM. Quite early and Pacific, so we might get some people. But yeah, so who's this workshop for? Ideally, 90% of you guys watching, or any of the lurkers watching, will be generating locally anyway on their own PCs. This isn't for you. 10% of the people watching will probably be using on-site generators, maybe the Civitai generator, for example. But they might want to get into generating locally. So I'm going to try and cover some of the simple ways that we can do that, ways that we can get into generating on our own computers. So if you're an expert and you know all about Comfy, then you're probably not going to want to watch this unless you just want to criticize, which is absolutely fine. But if you've never generated locally before and you think you don't have a PC that can handle it, then maybe you should watch. Give it a watch and you might learn something. So how can we generate images? If you're on Civitai, I presume you're either downloading the models to use them locally or you're using the on-site generator. So I'm sure we're all familiar that on Civitai you can choose models and other resources, and you can generate within the constraints of our own generator using the create button here. Got some questions coming already, so I'm going to answer these. First time chatter, love the site. How many people are on the dev team? We have 21. 20, I think it's about 20 people on the dev team right now. Not all of those are full-time. I think maybe half, less than half, are full-time, and the rest are contractors. But they've been with us a long time. So let's see. Afraid of Comfy UI? Yeah, absolutely. It's very much like Blender, workflow oriented, but we can look into that later on. Yeah. So first of all, yeah, I'm going to talk through some basic options that you've got for prompting on your own computer. But let's have a look at the on-site generator first. So we have constraints in the on-site generator, and I mean image filtering for certain types of not safe for work content. We can't prompt for nude celebrities, for example, or any celebrities really. And certain not safe for work content's blocked. And there's also technical limitations of our on-site generator, such as image output sizes. You're limited to square, landscape, portrait at these aspect ratios, at these dimensions. The on-site generator will get better over time, but if you run locally, then that's a much better option. You don't have these limitations. Now, speaking of the generator, you may be aware, we've got this little alert at the bottom here talking about generation services that are being onboarded, because you may have seen in the news that our image provider has dropped us. So we're having to do everything in-house now. We've fired up a data center, and we have the first GPUs in the data center this week, and we're going to start generating all our images in-house. So a lot of big changes coming to the generator. We're going to try and make it a lot more useful to generate on site, to be able to leverage all these models that we have, wonderful resources that we have. Do we have a date for generating variants of an image? No, we don't yet. So generating variants comes under some of the improvements like upscaling or AD tailor to fix eyes, or face swapping, in painting. These sorts of things are things that we have planned further down the line. And I think it'll be a lot easier for us to implement them now that we have our own hardware and we'll be developing on our own hardware rather than relying on a third-party provider to make our images for us. So one of the changes that we made recently to facilitate the new features that are coming is the full screen generator. So if you go to civitai.com/generate, you get a full screen and it's all slidable and a bit more responsive. Control nets, yeah, somebody mentioned, Mr. Megascience mentioned control nets. We're hoping to have control nets available on the on-site generator, yeah. Is it true that it will cost money to use models? I don't know, to be honest. You may have seen Justin's message talking about clubs. We implemented creator clubs, a way for creators to monetize their content, a bit like Patreon. We want people to be able to monetize, but we want it to be done in a fair way. We don't want anything to be paywalled, and there's a big debate going on right now about how we do this intelligently. So paying to use the generator is one of the options, but nothing is set in stone right now. We are going to take all the feedback from the community and find out the best way to do this. Hello, thanks for joining. Appreciate you coming in. Yeah, so where were we? Okay, so generator. The generator is actually really good on site, you know, within the limitations that it has. Let's have a look. Images. I can't browse too much on site because I'll probably get banned from Twitch. But this image, for example, so if you see an image on the website which has a little yellow banner at the bottom right-hand side, that means it was generated using the Civitai image generator. So these ones, for example, these three, you know, excellent quality, fantastic, you know, composition, really, really good. So yeah, you can get away if you don't have the system requirements to run any of this locally. You can definitely get away with using the generator. And right now, the generator is completely free, whether you're using SDXL models or whether you're using 1.5 models, completely free. Yep. So what do we need to get started generating locally? Well, ideally, you'll have an NVIDIA GPU with at least 6 gigabytes of VRAM. That's video memory on your graphics card. Obviously, the more the better, but you can get by with less. You can use AMD cards for some generation interfaces, and with some you can even use your CPU, but the performance with CPU is absolutely terrible. You're looking at multiple minutes per image to generate. I'll be demonstrating my image generation with a top-of-the-line 4090 card with 24 gigabytes of VRAM, so the speed of the image generation that I'm getting is considerably faster than most people will achieve, so just something to keep in mind. When you see my images coming back extremely fast, most people won't get that. So what interface choices do we really have if you want to generate locally? A lot. There are more springing up every day, and I think there's probably a dozen that I can think of off the top of my head. But some of them are better for beginners than others. Some of them are very popular, and I think there's a clear progression path through the interfaces. So some of the ones that most people start out with are, let's see, Easy Diffusion. I will got it linked up here, and I'll put it in the Twitch chat. So the first one, Easy Diffusion, is really simple, perfect for beginners. It's a one-click installer, pretty much. Great support network. They have a great Discord with some really, really knowledgeable members. You can run it with just a CPU. You don't need a graphics card at all. Although if you do have a graphics card, it's super fast, very lightweight. If you have two graphics cards, you can actually use them in conjunction to generate images. It's one of the only interfaces I know of that allows you to leverage dual graphics cards. It has some quite advanced features for a beginner-focused project, and I started my SD journey with Easy Diffusion, and I highly recommend it if you're just looking to get into Stable Diffusion. It supports SLI, yeah, it does. It does. It doesn't support SLI well, last time I used it, it only supported if you queue, say, 10 images, it'll farm out the images, one to each card, and cut your time in half. You can't generate a single image with 2 graphics cards. It's just pretty much parallel processing for your queue. For beginner Mac users, you can use Draw Things. Is very popular, and another one that's very popular is Diffusion B. Very, very simple and perfect choices for a beginner who wants to just get started generating images on their local Mac. I haven't used either of these, but they come highly recommended. There's a lot of people using Diffusion B and Draw Things. Draw Things is definitely more advanced than Diffusion B. Diffusion B is the simplest possible interface you can possibly imagine, I'm led to believe. For people who've used these less complex interfaces for a while and would probably like to graduate to something a little more complex with more options and more extensions, there is the kind of ubiquitous Automatic 1111. The official title for that is Stable Diffusion Web UI. It's pretty complex, but it also offers flexibility, which the beginner-focused apps just can't match. So Automatic is here. Actually, I'll paste in the Draw Things for Mac and Diffusion B. Now, both of these apps, all the apps that I'm showing you, allow you to come to Civitai and download our models and load them into these apps and generate locally with our models. Yeah, there will be an article. Will be an article eventually. Yep. So if you're not aware, we do have an education hub, education.civitai.com, where we have a lot of good information on many topics. And some of the topics that we're just getting into is like this, for example, getting started, a really simple getting started guide for local generation. So that's education.civitai.com. So say that you've worked with Diffusion B or Draw Things for a while, and you maybe want to graduate to something that's a bit more complex. Automatic 1111 is probably the next step. It is the most used interface right now. Now there are forks of it, but it's the original and best in my opinion. And it has many, many options, many extensions, community-made extensions, and such flexibility. It's fantastic. So, but there's another step which we can go beyond. I guess you could call these people masochists, and people who really want complete freedom over their image generation. There is something called Comfy UI. So Comfy UI is almost impenetrable without a great deal of learning and knowledge and understanding of how Stable Diffusion works. And I would really discourage any beginner from jumping straight into Comfy UI. It's just going to confuse you, and it's just going to make you miserable. And yeah, it's like jumping into Blender. Somebody mentioned Blender. It's a workflow-based interface, and yeah, don't try it unless you've read lots of guides and you're very familiar with how Stable Diffusion, the actual process of diffusion, works to create images. But we'll have a look at Comfy UI later. So today we're going to have a look at an interface called Fooocus. Now, Fooocus is a super beginner-friendly interface, but it's unique in that it only works with SDXL models. And if you're not aware of what SDXL is, so originally Stable Diffusion came out with a model called 1.4, and then it came out with a model called 1.5. Now, most models on Civitai are derived from that base 1.5 model. The latest iteration of Stable Diffusion is called SDXL, and it has much better image fidelity. It follows prompts a lot better, but the requirements to use SDXL models are Mega just mentioned here, 1060 with 6 gigabytes. he wishes that he could run it. Well, he can with Fooocus, because Fooocus is a super, super lightweight. People say it uses, SDXL uses too much VRAM, but with Fooocus you can use it. So let's have a look at the requirements for Fooocus. Fooocus, I have a guide on Fooocus here. I'll paste it into the chat. And if we scroll to the requirements at the bottom, Fooocus is built by the same person that makes ControlNet. He is a very clever student, a PhD student at Stanford University, and he's written an interface which is just for SDXL, and you need 16 gigabytes of system RAM and 6 gigabytes of VRAM, which is pretty modest nowadays. And with that, you should be able to run Fooocus. Eddie Sneed saying that he can't run SDXL with 16 gig and 6 gig of VRAM. We'd be interested to dive into that. You can't do the forum with Fooocus. Fooocus is very simple. We'll get into what you can actually do with it and what you can't in a second. But yeah, with a lower end system. So actually, no, sorry, I misspoke there. The minimum requirements for Fooocus are actually 4 gigabytes of VRAM, which is super, super low, and 8 gigabytes of system memory. If you have 16 gigabytes of system RAM and a 3060, like 6 gigabyte VRAM, you can generate an image in about 1.4 seconds. Super, super fast. It also works with Apple M1 and M2 hardware, which is great. And there are some downsides. Fooocus does not embed the generation metadata into your images. So that's something that a lot of the others do, is when you type in a prompt and you give it some options, dimensions, image dimensions, a seed, number of steps, all this technical stuff gets embedded into the image. So when you upload it to Civitai, we know all about what you've prompted for, and we can display the prompt here. All these generation parameters here. Fooocus, unfortunately, doesn't give you any of that. It just spits out an image, and when you upload it to Civitai, you don't get any of this. So what's interesting is that Justin, CEO Justin, has a meeting with the gentleman who owns Fooocus, and they're going to talk about better integration for Fooocus with Civitai. But in the meantime, where are we? I'm lost. Yes, Fooocus. So, setting up Fooocus. Let's have a look. Some questions first. How does Fooocus load a model differently than, say, Comfy? SDXL won't run on my card because it only has 6 gigabyte of VRAM, and a safe tensors is bigger than that. I don't know, to be honest. I really don't know. I don't have a small card, so I can't test this. I just have to go by what I've read in GitHub and other people. So if you test this, I'd be really interested to know. It would be great to get the Fooocus metadata situation dialed in. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So let's jump in Fooocus. So to get Fooocus, you can go here. It's the simplest installation ever. You just download it, unpack it to a folder, unzip it, and you'll get this kind of structure here. And all you have to do is hit run.bat. Now, the latest Fooocus files will be, is it free? Yeah, absolutely free. The latest Fooocus files will be downloaded as soon as you launch run.bat. And then every time thereafter, every time you run run.bat, and it will download the latest. It will also download a very popular SDXL model. We'll see that in a sec. So I'm launching run.bat right now. There's also a run anime.bat, which will download an anime model for generation. And there's a run realistic, which will download a photorealistic. And that's it. We're set up and we're in the interface. It loads in literally seconds. So you'll find that other interfaces take quite a long time. Can Fooocus also run the custom checkpoints from Civitai? Great question. We're coming to that. Absolutely. Anything that's on Civitai, any SDXL model or LoRa that's on Civitai, you can also load into Fooocus. Absolutely. So we've launched Fooocus, and what's the first thing we're going to do? We're going to fire up a super simple prompt. I'm just going to copy and paste one from Civitai that I just saw. We'll throw it in here, fix the spelling mistakes, and we'll hit generate. So the first time it runs for you guys, it'll probably be pretty slow because it has to download the model, or it'll still be downloading the model. And we're running completely default settings. Yeah, I've got VODs enabled. I'll post this VOD after it's finished. So the really cool thing about Fooocus is the fidelity of the images. The images out the box without setting any advanced settings are just fantastic. Absolutely, really, really good images. So let's have a look at these. Beautiful images. Yeah, I've got full quality previews enabled, but it can slow it down, the generation down. You can turn it off entirely. So when I click this generate and you can see the image generating, this slows down the generation process, but I've got such a powerful card, I don't really need to worry. If you are having problems, there are ways to turn this off so that all you get back is the image. You don't actually see it generating. Compare it to Midjourney. Actually, that's really interesting. You can compare it to Midjourney, and the developer does compare it to Midjourney. And there's a section on the Fooocus GitHub where he has a table showing if you prompt this in Midjourney, here's what you need to prompt in Fooocus to get the same results. So he also compares I'm not familiar with Midjourney, but I know that you have to put in little command line sort of tags in the prompt, dash, whatever. There's a table. I think it might actually be in my article. Yeah, so if you're using Midjourney, this is what you do in Fooocus to get the same result. So there's a table in this article. Yeah, Fooocus only runs SDXL, checkpoints, and LoRa's. Yep. But yeah, so these are the Midjourney options, and this is what you do in Fooocus to replicate that sort of command. So let's jump back here. Beautiful images, really, really good. So what else can you do with it? Well, turbo models. Yeah, I believe it does support turbo. Yep, and LCM. So what else can you do with it? Out of the box, it generates really nice pictures, but there are a whole host of other features that we really need to get into here. So the first one's going to be input image. So what have we got? We've got image variations. So say I like this image, but I want to get some variations of it. All I have to do is drag it down here, and I'm going to go very subtle and hit generate. And it's going to generate me variations of this image. 2 of them by default. Very subtle ones. Someone else tried SDXL, but even with 8 gigabytes, not so great. But I think Fooocus will do it for you, and we'll jump into the advanced settings, which will help you out a lot in a second. So yeah, so now we have 2 very subtle variations of this image. We can also upscale, so say that we like this variation, for example, we'll drag it down here, and we're going to upscale it. I didn't use the fast upscaler, so this will take a little while. But for a 2 times upscale, it's still pretty damn fast. Oh, my camera stopped working. My beautiful face. Welcome back. I got it back, thank you. So we're trying to upscale here. Here it comes. Quite slow. There is a fast upscaler, which I should have used. It's coming. And then we'll check out the fidelity of these images. Oh, come on. We're almost there. And these are pretty big images, to be honest. Here we go. Pretty big. And beautiful. Great, great image fidelity, great depth of field, super realism. And this isn't even using the a particularly realistic model. So when you hit the run.bat, it downloads the model Juggernaut version 6, which is a kind of multi-purpose model, I would say. We can actually use much more photorealistic models. So, but let's jump on to the next option that we have here. The next option in input image is image prompt. Now this is really pretty exciting. So image prompting lets us combine images. They have something called the Fooocus image mixture engine, which lets us put in 4 different images, or 3 or 2, and it will combine them, kind of merge them together into some pretty cool pictures. So let's pull this one down here, and we'll also prompt for, actually no, let me just pull up one that I made earlier. Doesn't have to be images that you've generated during this session. You can also bring up images that you've generated previously. So let me go and grab one real quick. Just find a Fooocus output. One that's useful. We'll try this one, for example, and we can even just get rid of the prompt, generate and see what we get. Might be terrible. We'll find out. Is it going to work? So we have Scottish hillside, heather, mountains, dark and sinister, and then we have a woman, brown hair. I think it's working pretty well. You know, we've got some of the heather color here. And if we go into the advanced options, this lets us adjust the weight of each image. So we could really bump up the weight on this one. We could drop the weight on this one a little. It put the color into her outfit. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I've had some really, really good results with image merging. So I put the right hand image far too high in this example. But here's another example. This one here, for example, was made using exactly the same technique. It was an image of just a woman on one side, the heather and the moor and the highlands on the other side. So you can see what it did to her there. Yes, so we messed that up. Let's try something different. Let's try face swapping. So Fooocus has built-in face swapping. Hiding behind a bush, exactly. That's where she is, yep. Let's try a face swap image. And we're going to try a prompt, really simple prompt. And we're going to try a picture of a person. Let's just use my partner. She can go in here. And we're going to hit generate and see what happens. Now, I have one that I generated earlier. Let's see if we can find it. Not bad. It's coming. So this is one I generated earlier with the same input picture. And for reference, that's the picture there. So really not bad. Yep, I'd say that was okay. And you can actually upload like 2 or 3 pictures of the same person to get a better fidelity output on the output. Different angles. Very, very good. Yeah. And yeah, it doesn't have to be color inputs. You can use black and white inputs. Yeah, for sure. So face swapping. Fooocus does a really good job. And it's all built in. You don't need any extra extensions like you would for Automatic 1111. You would need to use reactor or root or one of these different ones. So yeah, fantastic. If I wanted it to be black and white, then absolutely, yeah, I could have prompted, for a black and white picture of a witch, for sure. Next, we're going to have a look at in painting and out painting. So built in, let's give it an image. Let me find a good one that we can out paint a little. Let's see. We're going to drag this one in, and we want to out paint to the bottom. We don't have a good prompt for this, so I'll just use the one that we used before. And we're going to hit generate. So it's going to add more canvas to the bottom of this image and draw her chest. Hopefully it's safe for work, or we're going to get banned. It should be. It should be safe for work. You really have to try to get not safe for work images out of Fooocus. And I'll show you some tips on how to do it. But, ooh. It's working pretty well, though. Yeah, so look at that. We just outpainted this whole section here to extend the canvas. Really fantastic stuff. No messing around with advanced settings. It's all done behind the scene by Fooocus. I mean, if you really want to get into it, you can expose all those advanced settings and you can get into the meat of the settings behind the scenes, but you don't have to. I mean, the output images are so good. Why would you even bother? Especially from a beginner standpoint. Nobody wants to mess around with those settings when you can get such good outputs. So that is outpainting. Maybe we want to change an aspect of the image. So improve the detail, like the eyes. So we are going to do bright spark. No, put in the wrong place. In paint additional prompt, bright sparkling eyes. And then all we do is we take our paint tool and we paint the eyes. Expert here, not painting. And then we hit generate. Let's see what we get. You can see it painting the eyes. And we'll compare it to the one that we just generated. Can I get them both on screen? Not quite. Really good eyes. Very, very good. Okay, so we've increased the detail of the eyes. If we want to pull this one down here, now we're going to change this method to modify content. And we're going to say black goth lip. And we're going to change our lips. See what happens here. Could be terrible. Make the eyes blue, though. Yeah, we could try that. We can try that for sure. Did we mention her eyes here? Let's see. No, I don't think we mentioned the color of her eyes here. Oh, interesting. We almost got an eye in the mouth there. This is slightly better. I like this one. Oh, the eye. Can we get the eye in the mouth? I really hope we can. Sweet. She's a witch. Burn her. So yeah, you get the idea. You absolutely get the idea. Now all of this is done without even entering the advanced settings. So if you wanted to change the steps, you wanted to change the fidelity, the denoising or anything, you can do that. But we haven't even touched advanced yet. So pretty good just for out-the-box settings. You wanted to see if we could change her eye color. Bright blue eyes. Let's see. And we're going to change to improve detail. We might need to change to the other one. And here we go. Let's see. Comfy UI. Yeah, Comfy gives exactly what Daz said, far superior control. But if you're, like he said, if you're just coming into Stable Diffusion locally, do not touch Comfy UI. You'll just get incredibly frustrated with it, and which is a shame because it is a fantastic interface. It's just definitely not for beginners until you understand the flow of how Stable Diffusion works. It's not even worth. It's not even worth trying, in my opinion. So did we manage to get blue eyes? We did. We got blue eyes. And they look good, There's no masking issues. You don't get, big squares where we painted. In painting in Comfy, that mentions is really pretty basic as well. So the in painting here is fantastic. And one of the reasons it's fantastic is because Fooocus has its own in painting algorithm and model that it uses. So moving swiftly on, we have describe, where you can drop an image and you can hit describe and it'll just use blip or clip to describe what's in the image, giving you a prompt. Pretty basic stuff. Most interfaces have them. It's not really anything to write home about. Next, let's have a look at the advanced settings. So we're going to hit advanced. Instantly, we get this little pop-up on the side, and you'll see that we've been using the speed option for performance. There's a quality option, and there is an extreme speed option. Is there a version of ControlNet's Open Pose for Fooocus? No, there's not, unfortunately. That's something that they don't have. So posing in Fooocus is not yet possible, I think. No, I'm pretty sure you can't pose in Fooocus yet. But there are updates coming, very regularly. So actually, since I launched it this evening, there is an update, which we'll just talk about in a second, which wasn't there maybe 2 days ago. So the guy's definitely making big strides to change this. So what we were using performance speed, we can go to extreme speed, and we were using 1152 by 896 and 9 by 7. We could change this to, let's give it a big one, a massive banner, and we'll see what happens here. Pretty good. And we're using super close-up portrait in the prompt, so that's why we're getting super face close-ups. Yeah, exactly. Article banners done. Absolutely. I actually, speaking of that, my club banner, which hasn't been released, is all made in Fooocus. All the items of it are made in Fooocus. And I didn't even edit the dimensions in Photoshop at all. I just, generated in Fooocus, dropped them straight into the club. I don't even know if I'm going to release this club, but what's going on here, says first time chatter. So a big quick rundown. We're talking about if you are new to Stable Diffusion and you want to prompt generate images locally on your own hardware, but you might think that you don't have the system requirements to do so. We're talking about Fooocus, which is a very lightweight way to run SDXL models. So this is a VOD. I'm going to put the VOD up after I'm finished recording here. We'll also put it on YouTube, and you guys can go back through it. But we talked about a bunch of the different beginner interfaces for generating SD images locally on your own PC. So right now we're going through, running Comfy on a 4090. I've got a 4090 as well. No problem for us. And you're obviously a pro if you're running Comfy UI. So this is definitely not for you, but for people who maybe have never generated images locally before, this is what we're talking about. So we're going through some of the options in Fooocus. We're generating banners, we're generating portrait images, and we're just about to move on to, we're going to skip style for a second, and we're going to move to model. Style is really exciting, the style tab here at the top. But to get the most out of it, I think we need to change model first. So say that you have gone to Civitai, you have found a model that you like, an SDXL model, come over here, come down here, filter by SDXL, you will see all the SDXL resources that you can use in Fooocus. You download it, you come to your Fooocus folder, you put the checkpoints in here. Fooocus, models, checkpoints, drop it in here. And the LoRa's go into this folder here. So once they're in there, and you come back into Fooocus, come to your model tab. I'm going to move this down a little bit so you can see. Come to your model tab, and you can see it here. If you hit refresh all files, it'll refresh what's in the folder that you've just downloaded, and you can just select it from a list. So I've got SDF, I've got my model, got phase model, so we'll throw in phase model. And we have one LoRa set right now, but you can see it's as easy as selecting the LoRa from the list and giving it a strength. And that's it. Hypernetworks, aesthetic gradients. Yeah, none of that in Fooocus. It's just LoRa's and base models. There's a refiner option. Now, it's interesting. Even though Fooocus is aimed at SDXL models, you can use a 1.5 model as a refiner. And a refiner is like the last step of processing. It will switch over, and you can actually specify when it will switch over to generate the last few steps of that image generation using a different model. And you can start with an SDXL model and then flip it over into an SD 1.5 model to finish off the last few steps. I don't use it. There might be a good use case for it. I haven't found one. I just like my images to be pure SDXL, and I don't use any refiner for SDXL either. So we've changed our models up. We're using Phase latest model, which I think is released now on the site. Let's have a look at what it generates for the same prompt. Pretty good. But let's change the prompt a little bit. And we'll look at styles. I'm going to go back to setting here. I'll just generate one image at a time here for this next task. I'm going to look at style. Style is interesting. So Fooocus runs your prompt, this prompt here, through a local version of GPT-2. You know, everyone's familiar with ChatGPT, GPT-4. GPT-2 is lightweight enough to run locally, and it installs with Fooocus, and it passes your prompt through GPT and adds it to one of these styles, right? There's hundreds of them. You can create your own really easily. There's a styles folder. You can go in there, you can mess around with it. It's all in JSON. It's super simple. I'll put it in the article how to do this. But all you have to do is find a style that you like, click on it, and then hit prompt. We're going to have a look at dark fantasy. You can stack them up as well. So we'll do line art, dark fantasy, I don't know, RPG fantasy game, and we'll hit generate. I'm going to put in safe for work here just in case, and hit generate. Now, the more styles that you stack, the more styles that you stack, the more complex it gets, and the less it follows your prompt, less it follows one particular style. So let's try fairy tale, and you can search them, anime. And also, the model that you use affects the styles. So you can see I'm having trouble converting this model to these styles. But if I choose, say, my mix, we might get better outputs. It really depends on how flexible the model is. Yeah, most modern Devers right there, most modern SDXL models really don't need a refiner. The refiner was only really useful when it first came out, but the fine tunes that we've got and the merges that we've got nowadays don't really need them. So yeah, my model, for example, is a lot more responsive to prompting and a lot more responsive to the styles that I've added here. So it saves you a whole ton of time. You don't have to, type out anime and make up a really nice, intricate prompt. You can just come in here, search for a style, photographic, and make a really nice image. You know, let's try photo. We're gonna go photographic. Let's see. Photo. Long exposure, glamour photo. There is one for HDR. Let's try this. Yeah, they pretty much just augment the prompt. Yeah. Is this stable diffusion? Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, it's stable diffusion. Now, I will paste the link for Fooocus in the chat. Fooocus, is a tool for running on your own computer to use to generate SDXL images, and it's very lightweight. You can use it with a very kind of modest graphics card. You don't need much system RAM. You don't need much video memory to generate images with Fooocus, but it still generates beautiful, beautiful images. I think it's the best way to get started with SDXL for sure. So there we go. Models, you can change your models. Advanced settings now. There is a guidance scale, which you might be familiar with if you look at the Civitai website. Let's have a look at the generator here. We have a CFG scale. It's set to 7. Now, Fooocus uses its own CFG scale. Yeah, Dever says, I'd recommend against choosing more than 2 styles. You just get a mix that doesn't look like any of them. Yes, that's true, although some of them do complement each other very well. So the ones that I've used in the past to great effect are, anime, line art, silhouette art, minimalism, things that kind of go together. But if you try and use things that are at opposite ends of the visual spectrum, like silhouette art and photographic, you're going to get funky results, or it's just going to ignore them. I agree with that. But if you use things that are similar, then you can get some very, very good results. And yeah, they are pretty much just additional prompts in the text, and you can see it all if you go into the console, which runs in the background. You can see the model loading, and you can see the actual prompts there. This tool is called Fooocus, and I've just posted it in the chat there. First time chatter there. I will paste it again. Fooocus is a great little prompting tool that's by the creator of ControlNet. He's a student at Stanford University, super clever guy, and he has produced this wonderful tool for making great SDXL images. Advanced settings, there's a debug mode where you can really get into it if you really want to. You can change all sorts of. Is it better than Comfy? I wouldn't say it's better. No, that's kind of hard to quantify. It's a lot more straightforward than Comfy, but it just doesn't do as much, But if you're just getting started, exactly, it's a different tool. It's like a hammer and a saw, There is ruined Fooocus. Yeah, so there are forks. There are versions of Fooocus which do different things, have more features. Fooocus is the original version. There are people have created their own, just like with Automatic 1111, people forked that and have created their own versions. But this is the original version, and that's the only one I'm going to cover in the tutorials, the official version. So you can really get into, if you want. Oh, we talked about how the image previews can really slow down generation. So I've got I'm set to quality right now. When I click generate, you can see the images generating. This can really slow down the generation because you're having to see it generating each frame as it's generating. You can come in here to advanced. You can come down to disable preview, and yeah, makes it faster. You don't get to see it until the image is done, and then it will show it to you at the end. Safe tensors files work. Yep, absolutely. Really, really simple. Anything you download from Civitai, you can just put into the checkpoints, the Fooocus models checkpoints folder, or the Fooocus models LoRa's folder, and there you go. You're ready to go. You can come into the models, hit refresh. They'll appear in the list, and you're ready to prompt and get some fantastic images. It's extremely optimized for GPU. So with Fooocus, you can run Fooocus with a minimum of 4 gigabytes of VRAM and 8 of system memory. Multiple LoRa's. Come in here, you can use up to 5 LoRa's at a time. LoRa 1, LoRa 2, and so on. Someone says, I like using the preview when I'm testing the prompts, and I see what I'm getting and don't have to wait for the full gen. Yeah, absolutely. I can 100% agree. You can wait until it's halfway through, and then you can just hit skip or just stop if you don't like what you're seeing. Can you use 1.5 models? No, you can't. 1.5 LoRa's do not. Oh, my camera's died again. Let's deactivate that. With any of the interfaces, you cannot link 1.5 LoRa's with SDXL. They just don't. They're just not compatible. Embeddings, on the other hand, like textual inversions, you can use textual inversions with both. They only half work with SDXL though. 1.5 textual inversions half work with SDXL, and there's a folder for those too. You can just put them into the embeddings folder and just call them by name in the prompt box here. There's also a negative prompt over here in the advanced settings. Yeah, for example, also 1.5 V will not work with the SDXL model. Can you explain the refiner? So if we go to model refiner, so with SDXL, they have the concept of a refiner stage. At the end of image generation, it'll switch to a new model and use that new model for the last few steps of generation to refine it, add better details to it. That kind of fell out of practice, fell out of use very, very quickly once SDXL arrived, and now we just don't use it. All the models that are coming out for SDXL don't need a refiner to make them look nice. But if you really want to, you can use a 1.5 model as the refiner. So it would generate most of the steps with SDXL, and then at the last minute of generation, last couple of seconds, it'll switch over and use a 1.5 model to finish off the image. I don't like the way that looks. Some people do. Some people use it. You just have to experiment, really. But that's what that's for there. Let's see. Macs are not mentioned in the GitHub. To be honest, I don't know about Mac on Fooocus. I really couldn't tell you. But no, wait, no. I'm lying to you. It works on Apple M1 and M2. That's all I know. That's all I know. But we did talk about interfaces that do work for Mac earlier on. We talked about Draw Things and Diffusion B, and Easy Diffusion works on Mac as well, I believe. So there are plenty of really good options that are kind of native for Mac. Maybe not quite as good as Fooocus, though. Yeah, if you do get it running, please let me know. I'd be interested to know. You can DM me through the Discord. Or you can drop me a line. Civitai.com. Did I spell Civitai right? Yep. can you explain what these things mean, like CFG, scheduler, denoise, sampler? Yeah, so that's going to be a completely different topic, but you can come to civitai.com and come down to the bottom here, click this little chap down here, this little icon, and it'll connect you up to what we call CivBot. I'm going to start a new chat with CivBot here. So CivBot knows a lot about generative AI and stable diffusion, and he can speak Brazilian as well. So if you want to speak to him in another language, absolutely speak to him in whatever language you're comfortable with, and you can ask him, please explain. You're asking CFG or yeah, CFG, and hopefully, yeah, he'll give you a good answer. So the answer he gave us there, CFG stands for classifier free guidance. And you should be able to just say to him, you know, I don't know how you'd say that in Brazilian, but there you go. So he will translate it to your own language. Is it possible to do animations in Fooocus? No, sorry. There are no animation capabilities in Fooocus right now. I'm not sure that that's something that they'll ever want to implement. Fooocus is really meant to be, super beginners, really, really simple, don't have to do much to get a very, very good image. So I'm not sure how much they want to implement, how much more complexity they want to add to Fooocus. So lastly, before we're going to leave Fooocus for now. I think you've seen everything Fooocus can do. Let me see if I can show you a couple images that Fooocus generated that were actually good. Let's see. Yeah, Fooocus just generates just beautiful images. I'm just blown away with what Fooocus can do. Yeah, really, really good stuff. And really simple prompts too. Fooocus negative style, I think the negative just puts in a negative prompt for you. It has like a basic negative prompt. But let's see, Fooocus also does not safe for work. You do have to actually ask for it, not safe for work in the prompt, or you could put safe for work in the negative prompt, but it will give you not safe for work content as well, which is excellent. But yeah, shorter prompts, even like 2 or 3 word prompts. Okay, so we're hearing here that we not say Fooocus is only for beginners. There's a lot of potential for fast, good quality generations. Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree, because this came out of Fooocus, right? Yeah, that came out of Fooocus. Just beautiful. I'm not gonna risk showing any not safe for work. You guys can download Fooocus and give it a go. But yeah, Fooocus is just the way that the prompting works, the way that the prompt engine works, allows you to just put in very, very simple prompts. Woman in a white dress, for example, blonde hair, and you'll get really, really good outputs. Really good. So I'm a massive fan of Fooocus. I really encourage you guys to check it out. So people were asking about Comfy UI. Why is Comfy UI more complex than, say, Fooocus, for example? This is Comfy UI. Comfy UI is it's modular. You start off, it's a workflow style. If you've ever used Blender and you've had to connect the nodes together, it's just like that. It's spaghetti code, people call it. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to look like this. It can look a lot simpler, but depending on what you want to do with it, it can get a lot more fearsome than this as well. Now, this one is a flow for fixing hands. This is for fixing hands. And what it does is there are thousands, okay, no, not thousands. No, I think you could say thousands of components that do different things, different SD related things. You can right click and you can add a node. They're called nodes, and there are lots. There's a whole library of nodes that you can add and chain together in certain ways to do different things. And in this example, it is using something called Mesh Graphomer to refine hands, to get better hands out of images. So let's give it a go, actually. I'll show you what it does. So over here, it loads the model. So we're going to load this model. We're going to run this prompt, a positive prompt and a negative prompt. Switch to spline so it's easier to see what goes where. These little lines, you can change how they work, how they display, and oh god, it's pretty fearsome. We don't need to know all of it. It uses a code. It uses a control net called depth hand, which does this. It identifies hands and images. So it sees this hand here and it thinks this is kind of crap, and it identified depth maps them, and then it in-paints them onto the output. So you can do some really, really interesting things. Now, if you join Tyler, our video guy, if you join him on Thursdays, he uses Comfy UI to do absolutely crazy video content, and it's 10 times flows that are 10 times as big as this. Massive flows, very, very complex. This is actually pretty simple. So I'm going to hit Q prompt here. We're going to see what we get. Oh god, this is going to be bad. So we've got some lobster hands here. Not looking so good. Oops. And let's see what we get out. Yeah, that's kind of janky. One, two, three, four, five. Yep. Let's see what we get. But I just there's so much flexibility of what you can do in Comfy. That's the plus side for Comfy. Oh god, that's worse. There's lots of settings that we can play with. I have these the resolution, the padding. I wonder if Comfy UI supports depth hand refiner. Yes, that is exactly what we're using here. If that's what you're talking about. The new control net model that just came out. Okay, there's a better example. 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers, and we've now got a pretty good looking hand out of that. So yeah, these are things that you just cannot do in Fooocus. Lots of cool stuff that you just can't do in Fooocus, but they're for different things. Like I said before, one's a hammer, one's a saw. Wait, is that why my hand fix generations came out awful? I don't know. You were using the regular depth model. Ooh, okay. Now what I'm doing here, you can also do an automatic 1111, but you can use a detailer for it, and you can just use regular in-painting. But in the next week or so, I'll post this workflow. We've got some Comfy over on the Civitai Education Hub, which I'll link for you now. We have some Comfy resources. Let's have a look at. We've got some Comfy video resources showing you how to make videos inside Comfy. These are ones that I made earlier, and this tutorial will walk you through it, and it'll provide you with the flows to do it and all the settings. And these are images that I just passed into the a Comfy flow that looks like this and lets you animate them. So a lot of really advanced cool stuff. But yeah, definitely not beginner friendly, and you'd have to follow a whole bunch of tutorials to get up to this level. But that's what this is for, and we're going to try and make it as easy as possible this year. When will they add a workflow section to the front page? front page of Civitai, make it easier to find workflows. Yeah, that's something that I'm really hoping that we do. I think we're really going to push Comfy in some of the next updates. We've actually had a developer working full time on better supporting Comfy metadata, even supporting Comfy at the back end, like making Comfy flows and visualizing Comfy flows on the site in our own generator. So I think there's going to be a lot of changes coming there that are really pretty exciting. It looks like a Factorio game. Yeah, only person who created it knows how it works. Yeah, you build up your knowledge over time by reading the tutorials, and eventually you get to a point where you can look at it and say, oh, okay, I understand why that connects to this. Because there's only certain ways that nodes can connect to each other. So it's not like a complete free for all. So if you've worked with it for some time, you'll know that when you bring in a checkpoint, you have to attach it to a clip text encoder for the positive and the negative. It builds up and it's logical. It's just knowledge that you have to build over time. So it's not quite as arcane as you're expecting there. So good stuff. All right, we covered, just a recap, we covered getting started with local generation. So say you come to Civitai, you've been using the Civitai generator for quite some time. It does a really, really good job, by the way. And it's going to be getting better this year, a lot better than it is now. It's got a lot of limitations right now. We've had these problems with the provider that's just been really unfortunate. But the generator is going to be much, much better this year. We've already been talking about what we're going to be doing to it to make it so that you don't need to generate offline. You can just do it all on Civitai, which would be excellent. Just so convenient to just do it all on the website and in the mobile app, which is being developed, or just on the website, on mobile, on tablet, phone, whatever. So we talked about generating here. Then we talked about, hey, what if you want to take these checkpoints and these LoRa's and you want to run them offline? What are your choices? So I suggested that the first one that people should look at if they've never run offline before is Easy Diffusion. It's a one-click install, super easy to get started. It's got a great support network on Discord, really friendly people that run it, and you can generate without a graphics card. You can run on CPU. You can run on multiple GPUs. It's got some pretty advanced features for something that's so simple. It supports LoRa's and embeddings and all that sort of thing. Yep, you can get it here. We'll paste it back in the chat. Easy Diffusion. I would be step one for me. If I was new to SD, I would probably start with Easy Diffusion. If I was on a Mac, I'd probably start with Diffusion B for Mac. And then I might progress to Draw Things on Mac. Oops. And then if I was on PC, usually people progress from Easy Diffusion all straight to Automatic 1111 or Stable Diffusion Web UI. So once you've spent a bit of time getting to know the ins and outs of image generation and what you can do with a LoRa and LoRa strengths and prompting, then you should probably move up to the big boys. And then from there, you'd move to Comfy, and then also to Fooocus, like we mentioned. Although you could actually start off with Fooocus, yeah. Yeah, my first guide on installing WebUI was off the Rentry website, yeah, long ago, over a year ago. So Midjourney, Auto 1111, Comfy, Auto 11, yeah. The English translation of your sentences. Why, when I generate an image and then modify or add a corrective word, does it generate a completely different image instead of just correcting what I mentioned? That's a complex one. That's to do with the latent image. I'm not really qualified to answer that, I don't think. Maybe Dever can have a go at answering, or Daz can have a go at answering that one. And for Linux, good question. I believe Comfy and Auto both work on Linux. Easy Diffusion works on Linux, I think. I'm pretty sure it does. Windows, yeah. Easy Diffusion works on Linux. and on Mac. Yeah, even if you use the same seed, you're still going to get a different image when you change the prompt, even slightly. Android. So there's no, that I know of, there's no native Android Stable Diffusion app. I just don't think the mobile processors have enough guts to run it. So everything that you're running on mobile is the processing is being done on a server somewhere, like on Civitai. If you run Civitai, you go to civitai.com, you can use the generator, but it's our backend, which is generating the images. Yep. Can you use seeds with Fooocus? Yes, you can. Excuse me. You can, and I don't remember where. It used to be exposed. Oh, here, sorry. You just uncheck random, and it lets you set a seed. There's also a history log. I'm not going to open it because it might have some not safe for work in it. But if you click this history log, or you can actually find it in the folder where you output Fooocus. Let me just show you something real quick. Fooocus. There is, in the Fooocus folder, so this is the Fooocus folder system, there's a config. And if you open up this config.txt, it lets you change the paths to where you want to output your images to, and where you want to pick up your embeddings and your checkpoints and your control nets. So technically, you don't have to have two different models. You have to have the same model duplicated in two different interfaces. So if you're using Easy Diffusion or you're using Automatic 1111, then yeah, you can just point your Fooocus at those files and just have one copy of them, which saves a ton of space. But yeah, so I'm outputting all my Fooocus outputs to this folder here, which I can't show you because it's probably got some not safe for work in it. But inside that folder, you will find a history log. And in the history log, actually, let me see if I can open it up real quick. No, not going to do that. Too dangerous. Inside the history log, you will see the prompt, you'll see all the generation parameters, and you can copy from the history log and paste into this box here. And when you do, this generate button will change to load generation parameters. And you hit load generation parameters, it'll set the seed, it'll set all the quality, and it'll set any styles you had selected. And when you hit generate, it will generate exactly the same image as you generated previously. So yes, you can generate images that you did generate previously with Fooocus, but you have to go and look in the history log down here to see what you generated. And you may have missed it before for people who joined late, that our CEO, Justin, is going to meet, hopefully, with the Fooocus developer, and they're going to talk a little bit about integrations with Civitai, because Fooocus doesn't store its image metadata in its metadata, its information about the images, the prompt, the performance, the ratio, aspect ratio. It doesn't store it inside the image. So when you go and upload it to Civitai, you don't get any of the image information like you do here, which is pretty disappointing because Fooocus is such a great interface. And we sometimes have competitions, contests where you need to have metadata. It's stored in the images. So anyone who's using Fooocus is kind of left out there, which is pretty sad. So we're going to try and get that rectified and see what options there are there. All right, guys, we've done an hour. We have talked about everything to do with offline beginner Stable Diffusion. We're going to write all this up and put it in an article up on the education site. Come on here to educationcivitai.com. That'll be up real soon. We'll put up a super easy getting started guide. So yeah, now it's time for you guys to go out and download this and get started. I appreciate you all for coming. It was really nice. You're still waiting for Justin to DM me. Well, it's the weekend. He's not going to be on at the weekend. he's got to rest at least one day of the week. But he will be on. All the team will be back first thing tomorrow. So any questions that you have, you can DM me. Yeah, you can. I put my email in earlier on. It is Ali at Civitai.com, or you can DM me directly on our Discord, discord.gg/Civitai. And you can also connect to us through all our socials. The socials are in the Twitch description at the bottom. And yeah, I appreciate you all for joining. Thanks very much. I hope this was beneficial for a lot of you guys. The DM system on Civitai is something that we were just talking about Friday. It's going to be open for internal testing end of next week, and we're hoping to get it out this month. Really hoping to get it out this month to be able to DM. And yeah, it will have all the protections for bots and scammers that you come to expect from a DM system. Yeah. All right, guys. Max will be with you for office hours tomorrow. I don't know exactly the time for that, 2 p.m. Eastern, perhaps. And yeah, look out for him. You'll see the notification on Discord, and he will be answering all your questions and probably getting into the poll that went out on Friday about the clubs. He'll be able to talk to you a lot more about what we're thinking about there. So thank you very much. I appreciate you guys coming, and we love you. It's great to have you. Great to have such a good audience learning about this stuff. So I will be in touch. I'll see you next week. Bye bye, guys.